Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum, and we're going to discuss the overvaluation reaccumulation phase of a lifetime, part 2. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. So we did this video a week or two ago calling the overvaluation reaccumulation phase of a lifetime as part 1. And what did we say needed to happen? If you go back and watch that video, what did we say needed to happen for Ethereum to have a sustained rally against Bitcoin? The reason I'm doing this video now is the markets are relatively calm. Let's take inventory on what we said and where we are today. So the first thing we said that likely needs to happen before we can see a decisive momentum shift of the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation is what? A Bitcoin correction. Okay, we said this, by the way, before Bitcoin was having a major correction. So we were looking at Bitcoin over here, somewhere in this region over here, saying that okay, for Ethereum to have a nice rally, we need Bitcoin to have a correction. However, ideally speaking, we do not want that correction to go to the 20-week moving average, because the route to the 20-week moving average is likely not that good for Ethereum. Okay, so if Bitcoin were to correct to the 20-week all the way down here, then we would expect Ethereum to drop relatively quickly as well. Okay, now the reason why we're saying the overvaluation accumulation phase of a lifetime, as a reminder, is because we can't call this the accumulation phase of a lifetime, which we did. We have videos back there. We can't call that the accumulation phase of a lifetime, this the reaccumulation phase of a lifetime, and all the way up here, we can't call it, another accumulation phase. It is extended, right? We know the market's extended, but we accept this, right? And we know the market can stay extended for years. That's the reason why we're here, is it not? We're here because bubbles exist in cryptocurrency, because people do not know necessarily the best way to value these things, because it goes through phases of people thinking it's going to take over the world, and then other phases where it seems like no one's ever going to use it. And these phases, they just flip back and forth. And so you like to ride those phases where it's going to be the next best thing. The valuation goes much higher than it should, and then later on it comes back. Now, for Ethereum, to give you my general outlook for this market cycle, I think Ethereum will trend much higher than $1,500, okay? Much higher than $1,500, much higher than $2,000. It's not financial advice, of course, but I think we're still relatively early on. Now, we can always have corrections, right? We can always have corrections. We already had a correction from 2,000. Now we're at 1,500. We could go down to 1,200. We could go down to 1,100. This is not the point. The point is that if you're new to the market and you don't have exposure to cryptocurrency and you're looking to get exposure, you can still come into the market even if it is relatively elevated, as long as you recognize that you are taking on a bit of a risk, and you have to be okay with the potential downside risk. And we know there's always short-term downside risk when assets are up 15, 20x in less than a year, right? It's just common sense, and pretending like there's not a risk is not going to do you any favors. So you have to accept the risk and say, you know what? I'm here for the long haul. 2 years, maybe 3 years, and I want to see this thing continue to trend up. More institutions are going to come in. Obviously Bitcoin is where most of them are going to go, but I'm sure some will also be looking into other assets as well. And where is Ethereum, right? There it is, number 2. So we're going to continue to discuss why I think we're generally in a reaccumulation phase, albeit overvalued. So the first thing we can do is say, well, when we were over here and the price was 240, 235, I said, okay, this is the accumulation phase of a lifetime, because it's not that the price can't go down. It's just that if history is any indication, then our potential downside is very small. So if you look at our regression band for Ethereum, our potential downside from that accumulation phase of a lifetime was probably only about 30%. Now, people who are in the stock market would be somewhat, they would think it's somewhat comical to say 30% is nothing, but we know that this is pretty common in crypto. So it was not that we knew that it would go up. Back then, I said that this is a calculated risk, and the probability that it pays off is pretty high, Doesn't mean it can't drop before going up, but we can see, in fact, it just went straight up, more or less. Okay, now, here we are. The first thing we need, a Bitcoin correction. The second thing, a Bitcoin bounce, right? We already said we need a Bitcoin bounce. Why do you need a Bitcoin bounce? Because it sort of gives you the impression that this intermediate move is not over. Again, Bitcoin could trend much higher than 58K in the short term, but at least a decisive bounce would give the impression that maybe the move is not done, and therefore it brings confidence to the asset class as a whole and could help other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum rally. So you want to bounce that does not go past the prior all-time high. The reason you don't want it to go past the prior all-time high, because if it does, then Bitcoin goes back into price discovery mode. And we've seen it a million times. When Bitcoin's in price discovery mode, most everything bleeds against it. Not everything, but most every cryptocurrency will bleed against Bitcoin. At least the entire asset class as a whole will likely bleed against Bitcoin if it's in price discovery mode. So, in order for Ethereum to have a major breakout against Bitcoin, we would like to see Bitcoin have a bounce like it is having, but not to go past the prior all-time high. So that is what we're looking for in order for a sustained Ethereum rally. Now, what if it does go past the all-time high? Well, in that situation, it's not necessarily bad for Ethereum. I think we just sort of kick the analysis down the road in terms of kicking the can down the road, because we then essentially wait for Bitcoin to hit whatever new high it's going to hit, come back down, hopefully bounce, and then we'll have the same type of setup. So that's essentially where we are right now. And if Bitcoin does go back into price discovery mode, then it will likely drag Ethereum up, kicking and screaming. But this is not what we want. We're not here to ride an Ethereum train, kicking and screaming up. We want a decisive breakout of the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. Okay, so those are the first two things. A Bitcoin correction from the new all-time high. We had that. We had a drop of 25%. It's a sizable correction. What do we need next? We need a bounce. Now, is the bounce sufficient? Okay, this is where you could argue that, is it sufficient? Well, if you go back and look at Bitcoin, back way over here, and let's go back to 2017, because that was obviously a fairly impressive move by Bitcoin. And if we throw on the 20-day, we know that after Bitcoin had this correction, and let's take a measured move to see how far this correction was. We're just going to take it. We're not going to go down to the bottom of this wick. We'll just take it right here. It was about 29% or so. And then it sort of bounced, but it got rejected by the 20-day. And we know that Ethereum, if you go back and look, and we need to switch this over to the daily time frame. So if you look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, back over in 2017, let's take a close look. Let's break this down. You can see that this rally started on January 2nd. Okay, keep that date in mind. January 2nd. Bitcoin on January 2nd started its rally that broke through the 20-day moving average. So it showed more strength, right? It broke through the 20-day. Its first attempt to break the 20-day was actually met with rejection. Cold, hard rejection, right? And it went right up to the 20-day and then got rejected back down. And then on January 2nd, the rally started for Bitcoin, where back then we didn't know that 20K was the top, right? No one knew that 19.8 or whatever it was the top. Maybe this was just another correction like we had before, right? We had many corrections in the past, 40% corrections, like more, even more impressive if you don't include the wick. And they ultimately just carried on, right? Sorry about that. So we had this correction and then it bounced. We had a correction and then it bounced. So we didn't know that this wasn't just a normal correction that would then bounce. And because it was remaining below its prior all-time high, you can see it had the dead cat balance up to 17K. Because it did not go back into price discovery mode during this rally, this is what led to the insane Ethereum final push before a nice cool down phase. Now, if you go, let's start it actually on December 31st, because that's when Ethereum started moving a little bit, and then we had this major breakout candle right here. It rallied 130%. So Ethereum rallied 130% once Bitcoin started the rally that took it above the 20-day moving average. Okay, once it started that rally, 130%. Now, obviously, we would expect diminishing returns on most of these moves today, but let's suppose that Ethereum had a 100% move. Well, I mean, it would put it at 3K. Okay, so I do think 3K is theoretically on the cards as long as Bitcoin doesn't exactly, absolutely kick the bucket. Now, one of the things we said over here is that in order for Ethereum to have had that rally, it needed to have Bitcoin started the move where it broke the 20-day. Okay, the first attempt to break it on, say, the 27th of December, what did Ethereum do on the 27th of December, 2017? Okay, so this is where we need to go look. Let's look on the 27th of December, 2017. What was it doing? A whole lot of nothing. It was pretty boring. It was more or less moving sideways. Everyone's wondering, why did Ethereum not make a major move yet? What's it doing? It had a nice little correction here with Bitcoin. It sort of bounced back up, and then it just sort of stabilized at $700 after it had a wick all the way up to almost $900. Okay, so if you take a measured move, it actually bled down 22% to the bottom of the wick, 40%. To the bottom of these wicks, 30% or so. And then it just sort of stabilized for a few days. And you can see the top, the Bitcoin top was the 17th. So the Bitcoin top was the 17th. And Ethereum had a nice little rally after it, but then it had a sizable correction. So if you go to the present day and we look to see what happened, Ethereum hit its local top, or I guess its global top, on February 20th, or February 20th, yes, February 20th. Bitcoin hit its top on the 21st, in fact. Looks like it's the 21st. Okay, so Bitcoin hit it, it came back down. It had the move to the 20-day moving average, it got rejected. Because it got rejected, just like it did last time when we were in a manic bubble type mode, Ethereum is just doing much of nothing, right? It's just sort of chilling out. It sort of moved back up, but it's more or less just going sideways. We would like for Bitcoin to get above the 20-day moving average. Now, I don't want to say that getting above the 20-day moving average is a prerequisite for Ethereum to rally, because I've seen Ethereum rally many times when Bitcoin's below its 20-day moving average, so I don't want to imply that has to happen. And we've seen on any given day, Ethereum can go up 10, 15% and just sort of do its thing. So I don't want to say that Ethereum can't rally, but what I would say is that it's more likely to have a rally to something as crazy as 3K in the short term if Bitcoin is above its prior, or if it's above the 20-day moving average. So Ethereum, let me say that again, Ethereum is more likely to rally to $3,000 if Bitcoin can get above its 20-day moving average, but then not go above its prior all-time high. So maybe 7-8% below its prior all-time high, 52K, 53K, 54K, something like this. If it comes in here, sort of just chills, this would be prime time for Ethereum, right? Prime time. Now, the other thing we've said, this is going to be a long video. So the other thing we said, what else do we need? Well, we're getting it. We need altcoin rallies. Why do we need altcoin rallies? Well, a lot of these altcoin rallies will ultimately take profits back to Bitcoin, back to Ethereum, back to fiat. And a lot of people that are new to the space, they buy Bitcoin and then they're just not as, impressed with the returns that Bitcoin can give you at this point, which I don't think is the right mindset to have, because it is a safer investment. But that's just the way people are, right? It's just the way people are. They'll look at Bitcoin and say, okay, well, for Bitcoin to give me a 2x, it has to go to $96,000. For Ethereum to give me a 2x, it has to go to $3,000. And they'll look at that and say, okay, Ethereum is likely going to be the place where some people take profits from altcoins. Okay, if you look at coins like ADA, right? ADA has had an impressive rally. If you look at the ADA Ethereum valuation, you can see that it's making this major move that it hasn't made against Ethereum since January of 2018. Remember, ADA peaked against Ethereum on January 5th or so, 2018, somewhere in that ballpark. Ethereum did not peak until January 13th, so over a week later. Link was another coin that peaked before Ethereum did, back in 2017 or 2018. Back in 2018, Link peaked on January 8th. But we know that Ethereum's peak came well after ADA's peak and Link's peak, right? It came on the 13th. The 13th. And one of the reasons why I think Ethereum's move was so amazing back then, despite its market capitalization being so much higher than that of Cardano's and Chainlink's and a lot of the other altcoins, is because people were taking a lot of these profits from these altcoins and putting them into Ethereum. And that just fueled the rally. It fueled the rally. Now, that's another point, okay? So what do you need? Bitcoin. We need Bitcoin to correct. We need Bitcoin to stay below its prior all-time high. Ideally, we would like Bitcoin above its 20-day moving average because we're sort of flirting with euphoria, but we're not quite there. A lot of people would probably start to feel euphoric if Bitcoin went above its 20-day moving average. Where is Bitcoin's 20-day moving average? Well, my friends, it's sitting right at 49,900. Okay, so a decisive break of 50K and above would likely bring euphoria back to the market. And as long as Bitcoin doesn't go above 58K in the short term, this would be altcoin mania, most likely. So, doesn't mean altcoins can't rally in the meantime, though. So, I mean, we're actually in a phase right now where if Bitcoin is just sort of trending sideways here, we know that altcoins can rally here as well. It doesn't have to be above the 20-day. There's been plenty of times where it hasn't. So that's more of a loose thing. I would say if it's above the 20-day, things can be a lot more euphoric than if it's below the 20-day, but we'll take what we get, right? So, we've covered a lot. Bitcoin below its prior all-time high after a bounce above the 20-day ideally, altcoins booming so that we can take profits back to Ethereum. These are a lot of things that need to align. What's something else? What's something else that often helps? The Ether Bitcoin valuation. The Ether Bitcoin valuation. We've been here before, my friends, many times. I mean, you know, the mood swings of people on Ethereum, if you just look, you know, at the lower part of this, people were depressed, then people were euphoric up here. And then people were depressed, and then people were somewhat euphoric, and then depressed, and then euphoric, and then depressed, and then sort of euphoric, and then even more depressed, and then euphoric, and then depressed, right? It's the same thing over and over and over. And people start to say things like, Ethereum is dead. Well, what is dead may never die, right? It's died so many times, it can't really die at this point because it's already died. The other common grievance that people will say against Ethereum is that, well, it has more competition now, which I would grant you, right? It does have more competition. That doesn't change the fact that Ethereum has so much going on the network. People are using it. The fees are high. Why are the fees high? Because people are using it, right? That's why the fees are high. And I mean, there's other reasons as well. I mean, you know, that I'm not going to get into because we're not going to talk about the fundamental analysis side as much, but we could. Maybe I'll do a video on it eventually related to the fees and whatnot. One of the reasons the fees are high is because people are actually using it. And people are using it because it's like the most popular platform. It's the backbone of decentralized finance, smart contracts. People have built their platforms on top of Ethereum, or they built their own, you know, their own cryptocurrencies on top of Ethereum. Ethereum has more developers, you know, working on it than any other project, basically. So, the narrative. What else do you need besides the what we already mentioned? Well, you need the narrative, and the narrative is pushes Ethereum down. Everyone goes into these other coins that'll have these promises that I'm not saying that those promises can't play out. I'm very bullish on Cardano. I'm very bullish on Polkadot. Okay? I understand if you guys feel some way about that, but that's just the way it is. My portfolio primarily consists of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Link, ADA, and DOT. ADA and DOT are primarily hedges against Ethereum. I own more Ethereum than either of them, but I gotta say, because of their returns, they're starting to flirt with my Ethereum position. So, because they have been doing quite well. I mean, let's be honest. ADA put in a 60x over the last year. Whether you like it or not, you can't just scoff at a 60x return in a year. And DOT, by the way, has put in, you know, a 12x since August or so. So it's not like it's not doing anything. So the narrative is there that these other projects are going to spell doom and gloom for Ethereum. At some point, I think in the short term, that narrative will be spent. Might be a few weeks, and I do expect ADA and Polkadot to have you know, their own roles in the cycle. I think they will both do quite well, but that doesn't mean that Ethereum won't then rally as well, because we've seen the lower market cap coins rally on the idea that they're going to be the Ethereum killer. There will be resuming confidence back to Ethereum, I think, and when profits flow back to Ethereum, I think this is what we'll see, right? We'll see another Ethereum rally, and then people will start to start to be euphoric again over Ethereum. Maybe it'll come back up to the top of this band up here, and then people will say, okay, it's going to keep going up forever, and then maybe it doesn't, and then people get depressed again, and we'll sing, we'll just keep doing the same damn thing over and over and over. So, gone over a lot of stuff. The Ether Bitcoin valuation. Well, I think we should break the Ether Bitcoin valuation down a little bit more. Okay, I think we should break it down a little bit more than it currently is. And one of the ways we can do that, well, there's two ways. One of the ways we can actually do this to maybe get an idea of where the bottom is, I don't really know. Drawing lines on a chart doesn't mean anything. If you switch this off a log scale, maybe we could draw this line and sort of connect this and say, okay, well, maybe, maybe if this continues a little bit longer, we could even conceivably go all the way back down to 0.028. It's not completely out of the question, right? It's not completely out of the question. It's just something to consider. But regardless, as I said many years ago, this green band here that we've had drawn on the channel, if you go back and watch Ethereum Bitcoin videos from over a year ago, you'll see the same rectangle drawn. This is what I said would be our new accumulation phase for the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. This is why I'm bullish on Ethereum. Another reason, we're still in this band here. I think this is still our accumulation phase for Ethereum. This is the general uptrend that we're in so far for this cycle that we've had drawn on the channel for like a year and a half. The rectangle is our general reaccumulation zone. And we're getting closer to the bottom of it after being at the top of it not too long ago. If you look at the RSI, which, we can argue the merits of using RSI, but this is what it looks like on the weekly. We've actually seen it bounce around this level before. Okay, so if you look at this level, we bounced here in March of 2020. We bounced at this level in May of 2020. We bounced at this level in November of 2020. And we're approaching the same level. The main one that dropped significantly below it on the weekly was in December. And we expected this, right? We discussed the Ethereum Bitcoin bleed in detail for months, preparing people for the Ethereum Bitcoin capitulation in December, followed by a surge in January, and did it not play out beautifully, right? It played out exactly how we wanted it to. So, it's possible we could go below this level, but just keep an eye on this. This level's around 46. We bounced off this level a few times. Let's look at the 1 day. What does the 1 day look like? Well, we know that, if you're familiar with the RSI, generally if it's below 30, it's considered oversold. If it's above 70, it's considered overbought. So let me switch this back over to the daily time frame because I switched to the weekly. So the bottom we saw in October was around 26, 25. The bottom we saw in December was around 25. Right now, we're currently at 36. Not to say we have to go lower. In fact, if you look at where we are right now, we've bounced at higher levels before. We bounced here in November. Okay, we also bounced right here. We're at that level. So whether it continues to go down or not for a couple more weeks, I think is somewhat irrelevant. I do think it will probably bounce at some point in March. If not March, maybe April, but I would suspect March if it keeps up at this pace. Okay, so we've covered a lot. Now, let me show you something interesting. Let me show you one thing I think is interesting. If we look at the bull market support band for Ethereum, and we see where it is, for Bitcoin, we often say that a capitulation to the 20-week moving average would be catastrophic for Ethereum. And it probably would. It probably would. However, there is a point in history. Let's go back over here. March of 2017. Bitcoin hit a local top at 1355, 1362. Maybe that was somewhat depressing, just thinking of a local top for Bitcoin at 1362. And then it capitulated 35%, down to the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA. That's where it held us support on the weekly time frame. What was going on in March? What was going on starting March 6th for Ethereum? Let's take a look. March 6th, 2017. So we're looking all the way over here. Well, starting March 3rd, Ethereum capitulated from its local top, and it went down 25%. But interestingly enough, despite the fact that Bitcoin corrected to the 20-week on March 20th, Ethereum was going up. And in fact, Ethereum continued to go up until March 30th, and then it sort of cooled down for a month or so and continued on. So, what I'm trying to say in this scenario is there's so many reasons I am bullish on Ethereum. I call it the overvaluation reaccumulation phase of a lifetime because I cannot in good faith call it a just a normal accumulation phase of a lifetime, because when you look at where we are now, it's so far extended from where our quote unquote fair value is. But we may never go back to, or by the time we go back to this fair value regression line, it could be over $1,000. Okay, so we've seen that before. If you look here, we left the regression band at around, or we left the fair value at around $11, and we didn't return to it till $82. So here we left it at $230. Maybe by the time we return to it, the price of the fair value could be all the way up at, say, $1,000 in a few years, or $2,000 in a few years. So we cannot in good faith just say it's a normal accumulation phase like it was over here, when there was not nearly as much risk involved. However, the stars seems to still be aligning. Okay, Ether USD is up significantly, but a lot of other altcoins that are playing that narrative are sort of they're putting in amazing returns, and I imagine some of those profits will bleed back to Ethereum at some point. If we just continue on and Bitcoin does not capitulate to the 20-week moving average and just stays stable for a while, I think we're going to see good things for Ethereum. Hopefully this video has been informative. I know it was long, but I just wanted to sort of lay out all my thoughts related to the Ethereum USD valuation, the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation, the narrative that we've talked about, the fact that we did get a Bitcoin correction, the fact that it has had a bounce, the fact that it still is not above its prior all-time high, and the fact that if Bitcoin volatility reduces, then we could be setting the stage for a nice Ethereum rally in which altcoins that are going crazy are bleeding back into Ethereum. People might be taking profits from Bitcoin into Ethereum, and so on and so on and so on. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Remember, we have the Telegram channel in the description below, as well as the premium list if you're looking for exclusive content. You can find a link to the Altcoin season sale in the description below. You get access to the weekly reports, the weekly premium videos, the risk dashboard, the Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, and the trading view indicators and more. So check it out if you want. At the very least, subscribe to the channel. I know it was a long video. I hope it was worth it. I'll see you next time. Bye.